America, land of the free, home of the brave, and current member of the Axis of Evil. It's a plot twist nobody saw coming except maybe the writers of Veep. They've been suspiciously quiet lately. But here we are, in a world where the US is cozying up to dictators and throwing shade at its allies. Is this the Twilight Zone? Nope, just another Tuesday in 2025. Remember when America was all about spreading democracy? Yeah, good times. These days the US is more like that friend who swears they're not siding with anyone in a fight, but then borrows money from the bully and whispers insults about you behind your back. It's messy, and by messy I mean terrifying. The world is watching America, and honestly, we're a little concerned. Like, should we hide the good silverware? Concerned. So, buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to unpack this dumpster fire of a foreign policy. Spoiler alert, it ain't pretty. And before you say it, no, this isn't some liberal fantasy. We have receipts. So many receipts. Let's dive in, shall we? First stop, the United Nations. You know, that place where countries are supposed to, talk to each other and stuff. Apparently, someone forgot to give the US the memo, because lately America's voting record has been about as consistent as a toddler on a sugar rush. One minute they're abstaining from votes condemning human rights abuses. The next, they're siding with regimes that make Darth Vader look like a cuddly teddy bear. It's like they're playing a twisted game of Axis of Evil bingo, and they're one number away from a blackout. Look, I get it, the UN can be a bit of a snooze fest. But there's a difference between being bored and actively undermining decades of diplomatic efforts. It's like bringing a whoopee cushion to a funeral. Sure, it might get a chuckle, but at what cost? America, you used to be the cool kid at the UN, the one everyone wanted to sit with at lunch. Now you're the kid picking fights in the bathroom and writing on the walls with a Sharpie. And frankly, it's embarrassing. Get it together. Speaking of questionable decisions, let's talk about Ukraine. You remember Ukraine, right? That country Russia decided to, shall we say, liberate. The whole thing's a tragedy, but amidst the heartbreak and devastation, one thing has become abundantly clear. America's interest in Ukraine might be less about freedom and democracy and more about, well, stuff. Oil, gas, minerals, you name it, Ukraine's got it. And America, it seems, wants it. It's like finding out your friend only invited you to their birthday party for the cake. Except in this case, the cake is a war-torn country, and the birthday candles are fueled by international intrigue. Now, I'm not saying the US doesn't care about the Ukrainian people. That would be unfair. I'm just saying their concern seems awfully selective. Like that friend who only calls when they need to borrow your car and your lawnmower and your Netflix password. It's enough to make you wonder if America's foreign policy is less about promoting democracy and more about playing a global game of risk. Except the stakes are real lives, not plastic armies. And that, my friends, is a game no one can afford to lose. But wait, there's more! Because no discussion of America's descent into questionable alliances would be complete without mentioning the bromance that launched 1,000 memes, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. This unlikely duo, united by their shared love of power and disdain for democracy, have spent the last few years engaged in a bizarre diplomatic dance. Think Tango and Cash, but with more nuclear weapons and less witty banter. It's a relationship built on mutual admiration, backslapping, and enough thinly veiled threats to make a Bond villain blush. The world has watched in a mixture of amusement and horror as Trump has praised Putin's strongman tactics and defended his actions on the world stage. It's like watching your weird uncle hit it off with a biker gang at a family reunion. You know it's probably a bad idea, but you just can't look away. Section 5. The Art of the Deal. Diplomacy not included. Zelensky's Oval Office adventure. And then there was that whole Zelensky incident. Remember that? When Volodymyr Zelensky, the democratically elected president of Ukraine, visited the White House and ended up in what can only be described as a diplomatic hostage situation. The optics were not great. Imagine inviting someone over for dinner. then spending the entire evening berating them for not doing the dishes often enough. Oh, and also threatening to cut off their allowance if they don't start doing what you say. That's essentially what went down. Only instead of dishes, it was military aid. And instead of an allowance, it was the fate of a nation. No pressure, right? The meeting, which was supposed to be a show of solidarity, quickly devolved into a masterclass in how not to conduct international relations. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion, only the train was American diplomacy, and the wreckage was scattered across the global stage. Section 6. The price of freedom is the US selling out. So what does it all mean? Why is America seemingly so eager to cozy up to dictators and alienate its allies? Is it a misguided attempt at realpolitik? A desperate grab for power in an increasingly unstable world? Or is it something more sinister? A sign that America's commitment to democracy and human rights is beginning to waver? The truth, as always, is probably a messy combination of all of the above. But one thing is clear: America's actions are having a real impact on the world stage. Allies are questioning their trust in the US, adversaries are emboldened by its perceived weakness, and the very idea of a rules-based international order is being challenged like never before. The world is watching America, and right now we don't like what we see. Section 7. The World According to Trump, a reality show gone wrong. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of this entire saga is the realization that for some, none of this is a bug in the system. It's a feature. There are those who genuinely believe that aligning with autocrats and strongmen is in America's best interest. That democracy is overrated and might makes right. That the only language the world understands is the language of force. It's a dangerous and disturbing worldview. One that harks back to a darker time in human history. A time of empires and dictators, of wars fought for conquest and subjugation. It's a world where the strong do as they please, and the weak suffer what they must. The fact that this worldview is gaining traction in the heart of what was once considered the free world is deeply concerning. It's a sign that something has gone very, very wrong, that the values of democracy, freedom, and human rights are no longer universally shared. Section 8. Conclusion: the future of freedom, one head-scratcher at a time. So where do we go from here? How do we navigate this brave new world where up is down, black is white, and America is, well, let's just say, different? Honestly, I don't have all the answers. But I do know this: we can't afford to stay silent. We can't let fear and apathy win. We have to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when it feels like the whole world is going mad. Because the truth is, the future of freedom is at stake, not just in America, but around the world. And the choices we make today will have consequences for generations to come. So let's make sure those choices are good ones, for all our sakes. And hey, maybe along the way, we can even convince America to ditch the axis of evil look. It's so last season,